Welcome to Last Dawn Stories channel. When the zombie apocalypse arrived, the girl next door used her space ability to go on a crazy shopping spree. She swept away all the nearby supplies and even took away the relief supplies the government had given to our community. We begged her to leave some, but the girl sneered and said, "In the apocalypse, the saints get killed first. I hoarded these goods with my ability. Why should I give them to you losers?" In the end, we starved to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back one day before the apocalypse. I was thinking about how to lead everyone to fight against this greedy girl, but when I turned around, I saw that my parents and the neighbors were all glaring at her resentfully. It turned out that I wasn't the only one who had been reborn. Bang, bang, bang. Auntie and uncle, open the door quickly. It's Sarah. I'm a bit short of money recently and need it for something really important. Please give me some quickly. I was awakened by a familiar female voice, forcing down my shock. I rushed to the window and took a look. The green belt downstairs was still the familiar one. The neighbors were playing with their children in the community park. There was no sea of blood, no zombies wandering around. It was a scene of harmony and peace. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and checked. Sure enough, I had been reborn. Reborn to the day before the zombie outbreak, and the voice outside the door, which was as persistent as a lingering curse, was exactly the culprit who had killed my whole family. The girl living next door to me, Sarah. In my previous life, it was also at this time, Sarah suddenly knocked on the door and asked my parents for money, bluntly stating that she wanted to borrow some. My parents ran a supermarket downstairs in the community. Although it was small, it had everything needed, providing a lot of convenience for the neighbors. Recently, the supermarket shelves had just been emptied, and new goods were delivered, so my parents had gone to pick up the goods earlier that day. I had always disliked Sarah. When I heard she was here to ask for money, I directly refused her in a bad mood. After being refused by me, Sarah's face twisted and she said, "Jenny, I'm asking Auntie and Uncle for money. What does it have to do with you? I'm asking for money for something really important. You'll regret treating me like this." After saying that, she turned around and walked downstairs. Soon, I heard her asking other neighbors for money. At that time, I didn't know that she was borrowing money everywhere to hoard supplies. Because the zombie apocalypse was coming, I had been working in another city and only came back to my parents' place during holidays. Sarah moved in a year ago. There were 2 households on each floor in this building, so she became neighbors with my parents. She was about my age and had a sweet tongue. She called my parents auntie and uncle every day, and soon got very close to them. She originally wanted to recognize my parents as her godparents. If I hadn't been jealous after knowing this, my parents might have agreed. After failing to become their goddaughter, she wasn't discouraged. She still came to our house for meals every day and took some things from my parents' supermarket when she had nothing to do. My parents were too embarrassed to charge her money. Over time, she developed the habit of reaching out for things casually. She was more like my parents' daughter than I was, but this daughter of theirs only took and never gave back. After borrowing money from other neighbors, Sarah started buying supplies in large quantities. Until 8 o'clock the next morning, the zombie virus broke out. I was organizing the shelves in the supermarket with my parents, but the outside world changed completely. There were only the hisses of zombies and people's screams. My parents' first reaction was to lock the supermarket door. Their second reaction was to immediately take stock of the supplies in the supermarket and plan to use these things to help the neighbors in the community get through the apocalypse and hold on until the rescue arrived. But the next second, the supermarket door was slapped loudly, and Sarah's voice for help came from outside. She said she was being chased by zombies and asked us to open the door and save her. My parents were soft-hearted and immediately opened the door carefully, but the first thing Sarah did after coming in was to wave her little hand, and all the goods in the supermarket disappeared strangely before our eyes. My parents begged her to leave some for everyone, but Sarah, unlike her previous sweet-talking self, pushed them away with a cold smile and said, "In the apocalypse, the saints get killed first. I hoarded these goods with my ability. Why should I give them back? To be honest with you, I'm the female protagonist of this world. You didn't want me as your goddaughter, but insisted on your useless daughter, and you were also unwilling to give me money to hoard supplies. Those who offend the female protagonist will never have a good end." In my previous life, Sarah was extremely strange. She was like the powerful female protagonist with the protagonist's halo in an apocalypse novel. Obviously, she hadn't renovated her house, but her house was indestructible. Even though our houses were adjacent and we smashed through the wall of my house, we still couldn't enter hers. Later on, she herself started to appear and disappear mysteriously. She could disappear in an instant and then appear in another place in an instant, which made it even more convenient for her to hoard supplies. We simply couldn't catch her, let alone get our supplies back. Sarah was like a locust swarm passing through, every time. She could clean up all the nearby supplies before us ordinary people and then retreat unscathed. A long time after the apocalypse began, we finally waited for the official relief supplies airdropped on the rooftop, but Sarah waved her hand and stole them away. There was a baby who had just been born not long ago in the downstairs neighbor's family. Both his parents had turned into zombies, and the baby had no milk to drink. His grandparents knelt in front of Sarah's door, kowtowing, crying and saying that they were willing to do anything as long as she gave the baby something to eat. But inside the door, Sarah was gently whispering as she stroked her two big black dogs, "Baby 1, Baby 2, drink more, this milk is really good, Mom has hoarded a lot, enough for you to drink for 10 lifetimes. Inside the door were the big, fat, and strong black dogs. Outside the door were the dying residents of the community. Through the door, we angrily asked her why she had to be so heartless. Sarah said indifferently, "My dogs are more precious and reliable than people. You ordinary people are just suffering by living in this apocalypse. It's actually a relief to die sooner. I'm doing you a favor." That night, the baby downstairs starved to death. His grandparents, disheartened, opened the window and jumped down from the 11th floor. Later, even though the residents in our community united to resist the zombies and tried very hard to survive, in the end, we either died in the mouths of the zombies or were starved to death. "Auntie and Uncle, are you at home? You didn't answer the phone. What's going on? I really need the money for something very important." Sarah's impatient voice interrupted my memories. I took a deep breath, grabbed the fruit knife on the table, and while she wasn't paying attention, quickly opened the door. In my previous life, when Sarah asked my parents for money, I just casually refused her, and she held a grudge, forgetting all the kindness my parents had shown her before. But many neighbors lent her money. She used this money to hoard supplies, yet she didn't remember their kindness either. To put it bluntly, Sarah was born selfish, arrogant, indifferent, and vicious. And she was also extremely vindictive. Since that was the case, I might as well end her life with a knife while she wasn't powerful yet, getting rid of the future trouble once and for all. Even though it was a crime, at least I could protect my parents and everyone else. As soon as I made up my mind, I pushed the door open without hesitation and stabbed at her with the knife. Sarah froze at the door. She was used to reaching out to my parents, and obviously didn't expect that I was home and would attack her out of the blue. At this critical moment, a strange transparent shield suddenly lit up around her. After a while, a weak electronic voice sounded in the air, "Host, run quickly. I used up my points to protect you. Remember to find a way to help me upgrade quickly." Sarah woke up as if from a dream. Without hesitation, she turned around and dashed downstairs. Before leaving, she also threatened me, "Jenny, you wait, I won't let you off." I knew that I had alerted the enemy, but I didn't have time to regret it. I immediately rushed to the elevator and went to the supermarket. When I arrived, the supermarket door was closed tightly. My parents were inside packing the goods, looking as if they didn't plan to continue operating. They had a ruddy and lively complexion, no longer the appearance of those who had starved to death in the previous life. Seeing me, my mother's eyes turned red. She dropped the things in her hands and hugged me in her arms. "Jenny, my daughter, it's so good that you're alive." My father also wiped his tears and came over to hug us. Only then did I know that it wasn't just me who had been reborn, but also my parents. In my previous life, I led a vanguard team composed of the few young people left in the community, fighting on the front line against the zombies. This caused us to consume too much energy. We were so tired and hungry that we finally passed out. My father and the grandfathers and fathers in the community formed a death-defying team, deciding to fight to the death for their wives and children at home and go to a farther place to find supplies. Many uncles and fathers were pounced on by zombies and turned into one of them as soon as they went downstairs. My father and the others originally planned to go to a farther place to find supplies or see if they could find the rescue team. But all the good cars had been taken away by Sarah with a wave of her hand. They were driving a car that was in a terrible condition. Not long after they set off, the car ran out of gas and stopped 800 meters away from the community gate, surrounded by zombies. They were so hungry and hot that they didn't have the strength to resist at all. the zombies pounced on them, overturned the car, and bit them to death. At home, there was not only no food but also not a drop of water. Seeing that my lips were dry and cracked when I was in a coma, my mother had no choice but to cut many wounds on her hands and feed me her own blood every day, but the smell of blood attracted a lot of zombies. There were so many of them that it was only a matter of time before they broke in. Finally, my mother, propping up her weak body, took a last lingering look at me and used her remaining strength to attract the zombies away, trying to buy me a glimmer of hope for survival. Outside the door, there were the sounds of the zombies gnawing and my mother's wailing as she stumbled downstairs. In a daze, I forced myself to open my eyes. I vaguely heard the sound of the door next door opening, and I seemed to hear Sarah's mocking voice as she ate a self-heating hot pot. "It's all blood, it's so unlucky. If you want to die, die farther away. I'll have to clean up the mess." However, it seems that all the useless people in this community are almost dead. Baby 1, baby 2. This place will be our base from now on. I was so hungry and dizzy that I finally died in the face of her arrogance. Thinking of those painful experiences, I cried my heart out with my parents while exchanging information. I recalled the electronic voice in the air just now. "Host, run quickly. I used up my points to protect you. Remember to find a way to help me upgrade quickly." And based on all the strange things about Sarah in my previous life, finally, I came to a conclusion. The good news was that Sarah didn't have much ability herself. The bad news was that most likely, she had a space that could be upgraded. My father sighed. "Heaven has eyes. It let us return to the day before the apocalypse. At least we still have a chance to prepare." My mother was a bit indignant. If heaven really had eyes, it wouldn't have given an ungrateful person like Sarah a space. But I didn't have the mood to complain. My mind was full of what to do next. Over the years, although the neighbors had had some minor disputes at times, most of them were actually soft-hearted despite their harsh words. When something really happened, they still helped each other. Many years ago, my father was away on a business trip, and I was in college. My mother suddenly fainted at home. It was Aunt Monica upstairs who came to show off the gold bracelet her daughter bought for her. When she couldn't knock the door open, she realized something was wrong. She found a neighbor in the building who could unlock the door and opened our door, and then called 120 to save my mother. We were not family by blood, but we were closer than family. So after the zombie outbreak in my previous life, my parents immediately wanted to take out the supplies and tide over the difficulties with the neighbors. This time, it would be no exception. I was going to save everyone. Without hesitation, my parents and I took separate actions. My parents added all the trustworthy neighbors in the community, except Sarah, to a group chat. They told them that the supermarket was having a promotion to give back to old customers. Those who came now could choose goods worth $500 for free. Most of the neighbors in the community were middle-aged and elderly uncles, aunts, and elders. If we directly told them in the group chat that we had been reborn and the apocalypse was coming, they might not believe it. It was better to trick them here first and then tell them in person. As for me, I set out immediately to find the nearest official unit. Only by relying on the power of the state machinery could we subdue Sarah and her damn space. In my previous life, the zombie virus broke out suddenly. Many people in hospitals, schools, and shopping malls inexplicably turned into zombies. And even the army was no exception. The official departments were too busy to take care of themselves, and the order was on the verge of collapse. This also led to a shortage of manpower, and our community never waited for the rescue team. Later, the city was surrounded by zombies. Although people couldn't come, the official department adopted a more convenient way and began to airdrop supplies. It's just that all the supplies were stolen by Sarah. If I could remind the official department in this life, maybe I could change the situation of the apocalypse. On the way to the nearest police station by taxi, I didn't stop for a moment. I started posting on major online platforms, reminding netizens that the apocalypse was coming tomorrow, and attached a list of supplies for the zombie apocalypse. I sorted this out based on my experience in my previous life. However, after getting off the taxi, I was stopped by the security personnel at the entrance of the police station. Just as we were in a stalemate, a young man came out. Seeing that we were arguing, he quickly stepped forward to inquire. The security personnel immediately saluted. "Captain George." As soon as I heard that this person had some status, I immediately rushed up and said to the so-called Captain George with a serious expression, "Hello, my name is Jenny. I live at, my ID number is." What I'm going to say next may be hard for you to believe, but it's the truth. I was reborn from the apocalypse. At 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, the zombie virus will break out all over the world. There is a girl named Sarah living next door to my house. She has the ability of spatial powers. I finished speaking concisely and quickly. The man's expression was first shocked, and then it became rather complicated. Comrade Jenny, you should read fewer apocalypse novels in your spare time. Just leave quickly. If you cause more trouble, I will detain you on the charge of obstructing official business. There was really no way to prove that I had been reborn. Out of anger, I could only fight with this man for a few moves to prove that I was reborn from the apocalypse, having fought in the bloodshed and having extraordinary combat skills. After 3 moves, the man looked at me in shock, with excitement in his eyes as if he had finally met a worthy opponent. He stretched out his hand, looking like he still wanted to fight. Just then, the clear ringing of a bicycle bell suddenly came from not far away. A voice sounded in a timely manner, "Stop it, all of you, George. What Jenny said is true, because I'm also reborn." I looked at the gray-haired old man in front of me, and then at the hero wall in the police station, feeling extremely shocked. The person at the top of the list was actually this old man in front of me, my neighbor, Grandma Jane, who lived in 101 of the same building. It turned out that she was the former director. After Grandma Jane retired, she had been living in our community in a low-key manner. My parents ran a supermarket and were very kind to the neighbors in the community. They often gave some food to the elderly and children. Grandma Jane never accepted it for free every time and always paid the money properly. When she met me in the community park, she would always give me candies with a smile. In my previous life, Grandma Jane accidentally got scratched by a zombie while helping us close the unit door, and eventually turned into a zombie. Grandma Jane had great prestige. After the leaders listened to her with sweat on their faces, they immediately reported to the superior unit on the phone with trembling hands. Just as Grandma Jane and I were about to leave, the Captain George, who had been there before, suddenly ran up to me, gave me a series of phone numbers, and then scratched his head and said, "Comrade Jenny, my name is George. I had a lot of doubts about you just now. I'm really sorry, however, before the notice from the superior comes down. If you and Grandma's song encounter any difficulties, you can call me at any time." As soon as Grandma Jane and I returned to the entrance of the supermarket, we saw a sneaky figure appear at the corner of the alley not far away. It was Sarah, who had run away before. I immediately crept up behind her. I only heard Sarah say in a low voice to the air, "You're such a useless piece of shit. I originally wanted to go to James' supermarket to hoard supplies, but I found that the space is almost full and I can only put in a few boxes of milk. Seriously, how long will the supplies I've hoarded now last me?" It turned out that she came here to try to take away the supplies from our supermarket in advance. Fortunately, the electronic voice was very weak. Perhaps that was why I could hear its voice, and it didn't notice that I was eavesdropping nearby. I only heard it say intermittently, "I told you, the space is only 200 square meters now. You have to buy more gold and jade quickly to help me upgrade. After the upgrade, I can help you enhance the defense of your house. You can also hide in the space, and you can use the space to shuttle and flash to any place. This is your life-saving artifact in the apocalypse." Sarah sneered, "Buy gold and jade? I'm not buying anything. Where do I get the money? I used all my money to hoard supplies before. Today, I wanted to borrow some from the old fogies in the community, but they were all not at home." I guessed right. All of Sarah's strange abilities in my previous life were obtained by continuously upgrading this space. I clenched my fists and calculated in my heart, since the previous assassination attempt failed, should I rush up and try again now? Before I could act, the electronic voice suddenly said indifferently, "Host, the protective shield I overdraft to you only lasts for 24 hours. It will just happen to expire at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That Jenny seems to be very hostile towards you. If you don't help me upgrade, relying on the existing supplies in the space, you will eventually have no way out but death." Sarah started arguing with the electronic voice. I didn't listen any further and tiptoed back into the supermarket. When I pushed the door of the supermarket and went in, the room suddenly fell silent, and a series of familiar faces all looked at me. They were smiling, lively, and vivid. However, I didn't have time to chat. I reached out anxiously, "Hurry up, give me several mobile phones. I'm going to start getting rid of the locust." No one asked what I was going to do, nor did anyone ask what getting rid of the locust meant. Countless mobile phones were unlocked and were handed to me in front of me with tacit understanding. After carefully selecting, I picked up these mobile phones, opened the property owners group where Sarah was, and started sending messages. I used Aunt Monica's mobile phone to share the address of the nearest jewelry store in the property owners group. Aunt Monica texted, "I heard that this store I often go to got a lot of new goods yesterday. Is there anyone going to buy with me?" Aunt Judy texted, "Oh, I sold my jewelry last year to buy health products, but in the end, I found out that I was scammed. Gold bracelets are still reliable. When are you going? I want to buy two." Aunt Lily texted, "Is it cheap? If it's cheap, I'll also get one." Aunt Fiona texted, "My sister-in-law from my husband's side went to buy something there a few days ago. There really are a lot of new products. They are cheap and nice." After this act, I rushed to the back window. I saw that Sarah in the alley suddenly stopped arguing with the air. She took out her mobile phone and looked at it, mumbled a few words to the air, walked to the roadside, and started waving to hail a taxi. "The fish has taken the bait." Seeing this, I quickly sent out the edited text message. When I finished my work, I saw that my parents and the neighbors were all looking at me with smiles. "Jenny, Aunt Kathy, you're finally back. Everyone has been waiting for you for a long time." The person who said this was Uncle Yang, who lived in 301. He was a retired engineer. In my previous life, he and several other old researchers in the community tried to crack Sarah's space and take back the supplies that belonged to us. Unexpectedly, they angered Sarah. She shuttled to the homes of these uncles in the middle of the night, opened the doors, and lured the zombies in, resulting in the extermination of their families. "Jenny, have you thought of a way to deal with Sarah?" The person who said this was Teacher Winnie, who lived in the next building. She used to be the person I disliked the most. She was my high school head teacher, a garrulous, nagging, and mean old woman. She had never praised me. Every time she met my parents, she would talk about my grades. Even after I graduated from university and started working, she still haunted me to talk about my job and salary. However, in my previous life, after her husband and children all turned into zombies and everyone was on the verge of starving to death, she took out the last bit of food in her house and gave it to me. She fell weakly to the ground and said to me, "Jenny, do you remember what the teacher taught you before? When you encounter difficulties, you have to persevere, you have to live well. You are the smartest and most diligent student I have ever taught. You will definitely be able to defeat Sarah." Thinking of those scenes, at this moment, seeing her alive, I couldn't help but rush up and throw myself into her arms and cry, "Woohoo! Teacher Winnie, I'm sorry." The mean old woman gently patted my back, but her tone was a bit disdainful. "It's the teacher's duty to protect the students. Don't say sorry. How old are you and still crying? If you don't beat Sarah this time, don't say you're my student." As soon as she finished speaking, the neighbors standing in the supermarket all laughed teasingly. "It's so good that everyone has been reborn. Although the end of the world is tomorrow and the future is uncertain." But after discussion, we still decided to actively save ourselves and continue with the "get rid of the locust" plan. I bowed to everyone and said seriously, "Dear grandparents, uncles, aunts, and elders, thank you for your trust. Next, I will take the liberty to arrange your actions." The second step of the "get rid of the locust" plan was to move most of the supplies in the supermarket to a secret location for storage. Sarah had a space, but we didn't, before her space was upgraded. Although she couldn't shuttle around, once she entered the house where the supplies were stored, she could still take away our supplies in an instant. Although my plan was in progress, just in case, we had to find the strongest and most secret place in the community now and store most of the supermarket supplies there. The remaining small part would be distributed to the neighbors and taken home by them. At that time, never open the door for Sarah, without hesitation. The property management led the first team to the computer room in the underground parking lot to store a large amount of supplies. According to the research by Uncle Yang and the others before they died in their previous life, the computer room was located on the second basement floor of the underground parking lot. The signal there was extremely poor. In addition, the door of the computer room was thick, and there was strong electromagnetic interference and various radiations. Even if Sarah really acquired the space shuttle skill, she couldn't shuttle in here for a while. Moreover, there was a secret passage in this computer room that allowed us to come down from upstairs to get the supplies. Even if the zombies broke out, we could come down to take shelter at any time, but the zombies couldn't get in. This was a way for us to survive in the apocalypse. Teacher Winnie calculated that according to the current supplies in each family and the supplies in the supermarket, if we saved on food and drink, it would be enough for us to last for half a month. The neighbors were all touched and transferred money to my parents. James, Zara, although we are old, we can't just take things for free. We know that after the apocalypse begins, money will be worthless, but all we can give now is money. However, we promise that if the zombies break out like in the previous life, we will definitely protect Jenny with our lives. My parents of course refused. Having so much money was useless now. Sticking together and surviving was the most important thing. The third step of the get rid of the locust plan was to hoard supplies and make renovations. Sarah could hoard supplies, and so could we. In my previous life, Sarah's house was indestructible under the effect of the space. We didn't have a space, but we could buy some steel materials, iron frames, etc., to arm our houses. I sent that list of supplies for the zombie apocalypse in our small group chat and told everyone to take a look and fill in the gaps. We could remind each other of what else we needed to buy, but remember, we couldn't take things for free and must buy them with money. In addition, no matter what supplies they were, we absolutely couldn't buy them all up. We could only buy them according to our needs and leave a chance of survival for others. Don't imitate Sarah's locust-like behavior. The fourth step of the get rid of the locust plan was to recall relatives and friends and remind them. I told everyone, it's best for you to use all your means now and ask your children to come back immediately. In your previous life, your children were not by your side, and this was the biggest regret, no matter whether we live or die next. Being with our families is the most important thing. For those whose children are far away and can't arrive before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, don't ask them to come back. In case they encounter zombies on the way, it will be more troublesome. However, you can remind them to hoard supplies and tell them some ways to deal with zombies. You can also share the purchase list I sent in the group chat with them. Actually, I didn't need to remind them of these things. The moment everyone was reborn in the morning, they must have already contacted their children and relatives who were away. However, I still emphasized and nagged a few more words. Whether they believe it or not is their business. Just do good deeds and don't worry about the future. However, since the apocalypse is approaching, don't overestimate human nature, whether it's towards passers-by, relatives, or even some unfilial descendants of our own. It's better not to expose that we have a lot of supplies in the computer room of the underground parking lot. Otherwise, our enemies will be more than just Sarah. Everyone obediently dispersed according to my arrangements. My parents and I also went out together to buy the missing medicines and other supplies, as well as building materials. Seeing that I was worried all the way, my parents comforted me. Jenny, are you afraid that there will be traitors among these reborn people? Don't worry. No matter what, Mom and Dad will always stand by your side, support you, and protect you. I smiled and shook my head. The previous years of getting along had made the neighbors trust each other. The suspension bridge effect had made us closer than blood relatives in this life. The common enemy, Sarah, had made us share a common hatred, and the high-quality neighbors had made our team more cohesive. What I was afraid of now was never traitors. It was a thought that suddenly popped up just now that made me shudder. We were all reborn, so what about Sarah? Everyone had inherited some abilities from their previous lives after being reborn. For example, because I had fought with the zombies, I had become more decisive in my character, and some self-taught fighting skills had also been brought back. If Sarah was also reborn, would she directly inherit the abilities after the space was upgraded in her previous life? At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my parents and I returned home with the things we bought. There were several unexpected visitors in uniform standing at the door. The person in the lead was George. He said to me with a heavy expression, "Jenny, I'm sorry, Sarah has escaped." Yes, the previous text message was sent to George by me. I told him, "Sarah is going to the XX jewelry store to steal things with her space. If you go now, you can catch her in the act." I knew that in fact, George and the others still half believed what Grandma Jane and I said. If they could catch Sarah using her space, this would be the best proof that we had been reborn. After receiving my text message, George immediately went out on duty, and he indeed saw with his own eyes that Sarah waved her hand and all the jewelry in the display cabinet disappeared. They finally believed it and rushed up to arrest Sarah, but in the moment of crisis, Sarah suddenly shouted into the air, "System, take me away quickly. Even if you overdraw your power, just do it. Even if you pass out, it doesn't matter. I just collected a lot of gold and jade. Don't worry, when we get to a safe place, I'll wake you up and upgrade you." Then, a strange ripple appeared in the air, and Sarah disappeared out of thin air right before everyone's eyes. The police have been searching everywhere, George was worried that Sarah might retaliate against me, so he led a team to my place, George then told me seriously. I copied the surveillance footage from the jewelry store and sent it to the headquarters in City B. After they received it, they attached great importance to it. They sent people to come overnight and believed in the upcoming apocalypse tomorrow. Now, the news release should have been issued globally, declaring that the country has entered a state of level 1 alert. Jenny, you've made a great contribution this time. However, what should we do now that Sarah has escaped? How about you think back on your experience in your previous life and see where that space might have taken her? Suddenly, I took out the dagger in the entrance hall, smiled at George, and said something rather enigmatically, George, congratulations, you've also made a great contribution. After saying this, I rushed directly to the door of apartment 1201, this was Sarah's home. I winked at my father beside me and said, the fifth step of the get rid of the locust plan, Dad. Break down the door. My father didn't ask any questions, he picked up the electric saw and aimed it at Sarah's front door. The newly bought electric saw was immediately put to use, emitting a life-threatening buzzing sound. Seeing the identical excitement and agitation of our family of 3, George was completely confused and asked 3 crucial questions. Jenny, I want to make it clear first that I'm not trying to stop you from breaking down the door, I just want to ask. What on earth do you mean? What are you going to do? Is there anything I can help with? Amid the buzzing of the electric saw, I gently curled my lips and said, Captain George, the person you want to arrest is right inside. George stared at me with wide eyes. The electric saw slowly cut through Sarah's front door. With each bit of the crack being cut open, the sounds inside the house became clearer. Why hasn't the space been upgraded? Why hasn't the system woken up? Why? I clearly brought back so much gold and jade. System, hurry up and absorb them. Upgrade, wake up. I don't want to be caught. It was Sarah. Her voice was filled with anger and despair, and in the end, it even carried a sobbing tone. System, wake up and save me. But there was no reply from the electronic voice in the air. It seemed that it had really passed out after overdraining its power for Sarah twice. The hole in the door was getting bigger and bigger. And the figure of Sarah sitting in the living room gradually became clearer. George turned to look at me in shock and said, She's actually at home. How did you know? With a loud bang, several policemen kicked open the broken door, and our group rushed in. Sarah quickly stood up and, hiding behind the protective shield, shouted at us, Get out, you're breaking into a private residence. George and several policemen surrounded Sarah tightly, and they even took out their pistols vigilantly. I walked up to Sarah and stood still, looking at her with satisfaction and smiling as I said, Are you really surprised that your space can't be upgraded? Of course, it's because all the gold and jade you stole are fake. Do you still remember Aunt Monica who lived upstairs and saved my mother? She and my mother had always been at odds with each other and liked to show off to each other about the gold jewelry their children bought for them. At the beginning of last year, her child came home for the spring festival and took her to buy a pair of gold earrings, but later, when Aunt Monica was wearing the earrings, she found that the paint was peeling off. Then she made a big scene in that jewelry store, saying that the store was selling fake goods and demanding a refund and compensation. The jewelry store of course refused to admit it, so, out of anger, Aunt Monica sued them. In fact, we all knew that the jewelry store was selling fake goods, but they had connections, and there was nothing we could do about it, so, this lawsuit dragged on like this, and there was still no result. Sarah moved in later, so she didn't know about this matter, and the jewelry store that was in a lawsuit with Aunt Monica was exactly the one I deliberately shared in the property owners group today. It was close to our community, had low foot traffic, and had new goods in stock today. It was the most suitable jewelry store for robbery. Sure enough, Sarah, who was desperate and had a crooked mind, took the bait. This was all part of my plan from start to finish. No, it should be said that my plan had already started from the moment I knew I had been reborn. I wasn't that reckless. Originally, I didn't plan to directly go up and stab Sarah who came to borrow money with a knife, but then I thought, I had to test Sarah's abilities. Fortunately, I found out her secret with just one try. It was the space, and this space spoke feebly and mentioned the key words, overdraft, and upgrade. I then understood that this space wasn't omnipotent. Later, Sarah's conversation with the space at the entrance of the alley further confirmed my speculation, so, I deliberately sent a text message to George to lead them to the jewelry store. On the one hand, I wanted them to witness Sarah's strangeness and believe that we had been reborn. On the other hand, I didn't really expect these policemen to catch Sarah in one go. I just wanted the appearance of George and the others to consume the space's abilities and make it overdraw its power one more time. I believed that Sarah, who was afraid of death, would definitely beg the space to save her, and tomorrow morning, the apocalypse was about to arrive. Where could Sarah, who was used to a comfortable life, run to? Going home was what everyone yearned for. Sarah was no exception. She was confident that she had already snatched the gold and jade and could upgrade the space soon, as long as the space's abilities of entry, defense, and teleportation were awakened. No one could deal with her anymore, so she felt at ease and let the space take her home before it passed out. Everything was calculated by me. After learning the truth, Sarah cursed at me. Jenny, you're so vicious. Why did you scheme against me? Why do you have to oppose me? Is it because your parents wanted to recognize me as their goddaughter back then? It seemed that she wasn't reborn. I retorted, you've known about the coming apocalypse for a long time, right? Why, after you knew about the apocalypse, your first reaction was to use this rare treasure of a space to the survival resources of ordinary people? Sarah was slightly taken aback, seemingly surprised that I actually knew about both the apocalypse and the space. She sneered in a self-destructive manner and said, because I'm the female protagonist of this world, because in the apocalypse, the saints are the first to be killed. Although I have a space, I didn't plan to hurt anyone. I just wanted to hoard more supplies and survive in this apocalypse. What's wrong with that? I was so angry that I laughed instead. You didn't hurt anyone. Do you think that as long as you don't take action against us, it's a kind of favor to us? People have different personalities, and human nature is free. How you want to live is your business. Of course, you can look out for yourself in the apocalypse. Of course, you can choose not to extend a helping hand to us ordinary people. I will never morally you, even if you do nothing and just watch indifferently. As long as you don't seize our supplies, we'll just blame ourselves for our lack of ability even if we die. But when you swept away all the nearby resources like a locust, when you tried to steal our relief supplies, when you were feasting with your dogs in your house that was as solid as a fortress, when you fed the baby milk powder airdropped by the official to your dogs, when you were eating and drinking while mocking those who were kneeling outside and begging you to give their children something to eat, when you sneered at the blood of the neighbors who were bitten to death by zombies and thought it dirtied your doorway. Aren't these all acts of hurting us? You clearly have already hoarded enough supplies for 10 lifetimes. There are countless delicacies and sumptuous feasts in your space, but you still snatched the steamed buns from our airdropped supplies and threw them to your dogs as toys. You forced most of the people in the community to death. When you wake up from your dreams at midnight, don't you feel the slightest bit guilty? Sarah, you don't deserve to be called a human being at all. You should be called a locust instead. Under my successive scoldings mixed with blood and tears, Sarah broke down. She covered her head and shouted, "Nonsense, you're talking nonsense. I don't know anything about what you're saying, Jenny. I'm telling you, I didn't lose. Ha ha ha. Do you think this protective shield can only protect me from being hurt by you? You're wrong. It can also protect me so that I won't get hurt even if I jump off the 12th floor. The future is long. Remember this debt." After saying this, she suddenly rushed towards the window. George and the others were anxious to stop her, but I looked at the window indifferently and stopped them. Don't worry, she can't escape. The sixth step of the "get rid of the locust" plan was to wait for the hare by the tree stump. We rushed to the window and saw that there were densely packed neighbors standing on each floor. They were holding iron forks and iron cages, ready for action, and Sarah, who had jumped down, wasn't injured indeed thanks to the protection of the protective shield, but she directly fell into the largest iron cage on the first floor. Then, the neighbors surrounded her and locked the iron cage tightly. This was all part of the plan we had discussed in the supermarket. George and the other policemen rushed downstairs in a hurry and took her, along with the cage, back to the police station. Sarah was finished. At around 11 o'clock in the morning, the rumbling of several helicopters woke up the entire city. People from City B arrived. They were well armed and full of righteousness. They came from Base Number 1 in City B. Base Number 1 was the underground fortress with the highest level of confidentiality that the great leaders had specially cleared for us. All the reborn people in our community could go there with their families. The team waited until 3 o'clock in the morning. The children of the neighbors who had been previously informed and could come back had all returned. Taking advantage of this time, we told the local police the locations of the supplies we had previously hidden, and they could distribute them to other residents. Finally, The iron cage where Sarah was held was also loaded onto the plane and carefully guarded. As the captor, George went with us. Seeing this situation, Sarah finally became afraid. The researchers from the headquarters surrounded her iron cage as if they were admiring a rare treasure. Wow, finally, we have a specimen that can be dissected and studied. Sarah finally understood that the protective shield couldn't protect her. Moreover, in a few hours, the protective shield would disappear completely. At that time, she would truly be at the mercy of others. I was standing in the crowd, talking to my parents and the neighbors. There were only 5 hours left until 8 o'clock in the morning. Even though Sarah had been caught, we were still worried about this disaster. George suddenly leaned towards me, scratched his head, and said in a low voice, "Comrade Jenny, are you a bit afraid of going to City B? Don't be afraid, the great leaders won't do anything to you. They just want to understand the specific situation of the apocalypse in the previous life in person. Don't worry, no matter where you are, I will protect you. All of you." I smiled sincerely and said, "Thank you." After arriving at base number 1 in City B, we were properly settled. This place was deep underground, circular in shape, and full of a sense of technology everywhere. Each person had a room, and everyone was willing to be confined in their own rooms. My parents' rooms were on both sides next to mine. I knew that this was to protect us. After all, the first batch of zombies appeared suddenly. Maybe your family was having breakfast, and when you looked up, your parents sitting opposite you had already turned into zombies. Although we knew that among us neighbors who were together in the previous life, none of us were among the first batch of people who turned into zombies. But many things had changed in this life. Worried about the butterfly effect, it was better to be cautious. As for George and these combatants with combat capabilities, they were even holding guns, sitting face to face, handcuffed, and cross-legged on the open ground in the center of the base. As soon as it was 8 o'clock, if a teammate turned into a zombie, they would be directly shot dead. This measure had been implemented nationwide. Those without handcuffs used ropes, those without guns used knives. Even if the person who turned into a zombie was the closest to you, you had to cut open the back of their head at the first moment. After our practice in the previous life, we told everyone that this was the only way to kill a zombie. Before George went to join the main force, he passed by the door of my room, holding a gun. He smiled and waved at me to say goodbye, showing his white teeth. "Jenny, see you later." Through the bulletproof glass window of the room, I stared deeply at him and said, "Okay, see you later." 7:50, 7:55, 7:59, at exactly 8, the ear-piercing bell rang through the air. People's dark pupils became cloudy and pale. Blue veins crawled up their skin, their limbs twisted and twitched, and they let out painful growls from their throats. The zombie apocalypse had officially arrived. Extra story: my name is Sarah. When I was 7 years old, my mother passed away, my father remarried, and my stepmother gave birth to a younger brother. From then on, I became an orphan and led a life like in hell. I studied very hard, always dreaming of leaving this home that didn't belong to me. However, in life, everything requires talent, and studying is no exception. Unfortunately, I'm just the kind of person without talent. No matter how hard I tried, even if I wore out my books, my grades still couldn't match those of my genius classmates. They didn't take notes in class and went to play games after school, but in every exam, they were at the top of the class. I hate geniuses, and Jenny is exactly such a genius. After graduating from university, a lawyer came to me and said that my mother had entrusted him to set aside a fund for me, and now it was being transferred to me. It was a substantial amount of money, and I was overjoyed. With this money, I came to a strange city. After careful selection for a long time, I bought a house. I blocked my father, stepmother, and all my relatives, and finally, I lived a quiet and free life. My new neighbors were the James family, a gentle middle-aged couple. I lied that I was an orphan, and they took great care of me. They often invited me to have meals and frequently gave me snacks and gifts. If Jenny hadn't come back suddenly, I almost thought they were my parents. No, they should have been my parents originally. When I was crying and kneeling on the ground, ready to recognize them as my godparents, Jenny suddenly came back and acted coquettishly towards uncle and aunt, who were about to accept me as their daughter. Immediately left me behind and cooked delicious food for her, caring for and loving her. But these should have been mine. I hate Jenny. She is the typical other people's child. After she came back, the neighbors in the community all praised her. They said how well behaved and excellent she had been since childhood. that she graduated from a prestigious university, and how good her current job was. I hated her so much that my teeth itched, and I cursed her frantically in the dark. Jealousy was like a poisonous snake, tightening around my throat and making it hard for me to breathe. Just then, I suddenly heard a strange electronic voice in the dark. Hee hee, congratulations to the host for binding the space system. The system told me that at 8 o'clock in the morning, a month later, the zombie apocalypse would break out in this world. I knew it, I was indeed the chosen one. I, of course, knew about the zombie apocalypse when I was at school before. I really liked reading novels of this kind. There were various types. There were sweet wife novels, where the female lead was delicate, soft, and had no special abilities, and was imprisoned and forcefully loved by the overbearing little team leader. There were strong female lead novels, where the female lead used the space to hoard goods worth 5 billion crazily, while others lived a difficult life. She feasted in her fortress. I, of course, wanted to be the latter. However, there were always some so-called strong female leads who used the space supplies to support men in the apocalypse or were soft-hearted and helped others, only to be betrayed in the end. Bah, in the apocalypse, the saints should be killed first. I just want to be a cold-blooded and ruthless hoarding machine, so I took advantage of this 1-month time difference to start hoarding supplies everywhere. At first, I borrowed a lot of loans on various platforms and then went to the countryside to buy low-priced supplies. Those farmers were extremely grateful to me, thanking me for buying their grains, and they even gave me 2 black dogs as a bonus. I originally wanted to kill them and reserve them as dog meat, but then I thought, what if these 2 beasts could help me in the future? Anyway, I wasn't short of supplies, so I decided to keep them for fun first. Poor things, money is the most useless thing in the apocalypse. Just wait for death with your money. As the apocalypse was getting closer, I was still hoarding supplies, but I ran out of money. It didn't matter, I could just go and ask uncle and aunt for some. They had given me a lot of pocket money before, but I didn't expect that Jenny was at home and she refused me. How dare she? Damn it, damn it, damn it. When the apocalypse comes, I'll kill her first. However, the most urgent thing now was to get some money. Coincidentally, the system said that the space needed gold and jade to upgrade, so, under the pretext of borrowing money, I went to the homes of various neighbors. These old folks were so soft-hearted, thinking that I was an orphan. They were all very generous to me and insisted on inviting me in for tea. Of course, I wouldn't refuse. I was more than happy to. While they were pouring tea and getting food, I pretended to look around. In fact, I had already found the location of the rooms and secretly put their jewelry into the space. The system absorbed energy frantically. And then my space started to upgrade slowly and became bigger and bigger. I suddenly thought that spending money to hoard supplies wasn't very interesting. It was still more enjoyable to get things for free. So, on the day the apocalypse broke out, I went to the James family's supermarket and took away all their supplies. Looking at the dumbfounded expressions of their family of 3, I really wanted to laugh. They even begged me to leave some, saying that these things were prepared to be shared among all the people in the community. They really loved to pretend. I couldn't be bothered with them. No, I couldn't be bothered with anyone. I used the space to search for supplies nearby as well. Everything I saw belonged to me. I left nothing behind. In just 2 days, there was a humming sound on the rooftop. I used the space to teleport up to find out what was going on and found that the airdropped relief supplies had arrived. I opened the box in disgust and found that it was filled with instant noodles, steamed buns, biscuits, and mineral water. To be honest, these things were of no use to me at all. The food in my space was much richer than this, enough for me and the 2 beasts to eat for 10 lifetimes. However, since I had seen them, of course, I had to take them all. When I established my base in the future, I could use these unpalatable things to recruit people and make them work for me. Thinking of this, I became even more receptive to all the supplies. I took all the building materials, I took all the vehicles, I took all the daily necessities. My space had become boundless, and no matter how much I filled it, it could never be full. I could hoard as much as I wanted. The useless people who had lost the relief supplies came to my door begging. They even morally kidnapped me, saying that since I had taken all the things, the children had nothing to eat and were going to starve to death. And they hoped that I could give them some milk powder. What? Are they kidding me? Having children in the apocalypse? Oh, were they born before the apocalypse came? Still, it's not okay. Children are a burden in the apocalypse. It's better to strangle them directly. Anyway, I wouldn't save them. I feasted with baby 1 and baby 2, and outside, there were sounds of kowtowing. It was so annoying. Fortunately, the child died, and the 2 old folks also committed suicide by jumping off the building. That's right, useless people don't deserve to live in the apocalypse. Later, these neighbors tried many ways to enter my house, but the space's defense was so good that it protected my house tightly. After a while, the useless neighbors fell silent, as if they were about to starve to death, so they opened their doors and decided to go out and take a chance. But now, the community was surrounded by zombies, and without a car, going out meant death. They were hesitant. Since I was living a comfortable and boring life, I got the idea of teasing them. I took out a broken car from the space and casually threw it downstairs in the community unit. Sure enough, the useless people took the bait and decided to drive this broken car to find supplies, boasting that they were going to save their wives, children, and the elderly, but they didn't know that I had drained all the oil from this car. Now, the oil in it was only enough for them to drive 800 meters out of the community. The useless people still went, and as expected, they all died. It wasn't me who killed them. They insisted on going themselves. It had nothing to do with me. Then, the smell of blood next door attracted a group of zombies that scratched at the door every day. I don't know what that mother and daughter next door were doing. So annoying. Just as I finished complaining, the aunt next door stumbled and opened the door. Those zombies rushed up one after another, and blood spattered all over the ground. The aunt struggled to crawl downstairs, dirtying the path in front of my door, and I had to clean it up. I and baby 1 and baby 2 were complaining while watching TV. As soon as I finished speaking, I heard a shrill scream from next door, and then there was no sound. The system told me that Jenny was dead. There were no living people left in this community either. Good riddance. This place would be my base from now on. Starting from here, I was going to build an empire belonging to me, Sarah. Later, for a while, a few thoughtless outsider men would occasionally break into the community. I excitedly opened the door, originally wanting to recruit them as my subordinates, but relying on their well-equipped and large numbers. When they saw that I, a girl, was raising 2 big fat dogs, they tried to do something improper to me. I sneered and used the power of the space to kill them all, after more than half a year. This place seemed to have completely become a dead city, except for the zombies wandering around. There was no other movement at all. My dream of building a base didn't come true, and I almost got depressed, until one morning, I keenly heard a huge engine sound coming from downstairs. A truck slowly drove towards the community. They had strong firepower and quickly cleared the zombies around. The man in the lead had broad shoulders, a narrow waist, long legs, was dressed in a black combat uniform, had blood on his face, and looked solemn. His dark eyes swept around, and suddenly he looked up in the direction of my house. I stood behind the curtain and secretly met his gaze. My heart was pounding. I excitedly asked the system, "I'm the strong female lead of this world," but it didn't say whether there would be a romantic partner or not. Right, before the system could answer, I continued on my own. I want this man. Life was boring, and I had too many supplies. I had to find someone to spend time with me. No, it was okay to find many people. I could keep a few male pets for fun. That man really lived up to my expectations. Soon, he led his subordinates and came up. "Hello, are there any other survivors? We are from the first base." Before he could finish speaking, I controlled the space and dragged him into the house. The man fell to the ground, and the first thing he did was react quickly, stand up, and stare at me vigilantly. I looked down at him and laughed meaningfully. "Be my male pet. If you don't agree, I'll kill all your subordinates outside the door." The man was stunned for a moment, and then a look of anger appeared on his face. I thought he was scared and was about to continue persuading him. After all, it was very rare for me to be so patient with someone, but I didn't expect that my golden finger. The space suddenly failed. The indestructible door was kicked open, and the man's subordinates surrounded me. Some of them were holding water balls in their hands, some had sparks at their fingertips, and some had thick vines behind them, waving menacingly. "Captain, are you okay? Damn it, there's actually a space ability user here. If it weren't for the captain's silence ability, we might really have been in trouble today." "No. Why are there so many skeletons in this house? No, no. Wait a moment, what was going on? Wasn't my space the most special? Why did so many ability users suddenly appear? I don't believe it. I'm the protagonist of this world." I was taken back to the base by this group of people. From their conversations, I learned that a year after the apocalypse, abilities finally emerged. Everyone could awaken their abilities, and I wasn't the most special one anymore. No, clearly, I'm the female lead. A mind-reading ability user knew all the evil things I had done in the past and publicized them in the base. That man in black locked me in a cell. He said that I clearly had a golden finger but used it to harm people. He said that just because I was jealous of that girl named Jenny, I had harmed the entire community. He said that even in the apocalypse, there would be laws to judge me for those who had died unjustly. But I didn't wait for the judgment of the law. I only waited for a group of crazy researchers in white robes. They secretly took me away without the knowledge of the man in black. They inserted a lot of tubes into my body every day. The cold instruments passed over my body. I had already forgotten about time and pain. Finally, one day, the crazy people had made some discovery. It turns out that she's not an ability user. This space is just in her mind. Then, the crazy people held sharp scalpels and stabbed at my brain fiercely, before I died. I vaguely saw the man in black rush in angrily and question these people. I said that her crimes should be judged by the law. You shouldn't have done this. The crazy people stopped him and smiled slowly. We don't have a space ability user, and this space is very interesting. Maybe one day, we can achieve space jumps in different dimensions. The man was still unhappy. What do you mean? The crazy people became serious. It means that maybe someone can jump from this anchor point to the anchor point before the zombie outbreak. She is destined to become the most powerful person at the new anchor point and save this rotten hell. If that day really comes, what you need to do is find that person, protect her, and follow her. Our respected Captain George. That's all the story. What do you think of this story? Share with me in the comments section. What would you do if you were in this situation? Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.